Hey guys, so I'm here to do chapter 3, 6 phone calls. As you know, if you've watched the video before, chapter 3 is split up into 6 different parts. So this is kind of part 2. Each one of them goes along as Mike Hanlon makes a phone call. So this one is called Richard Tozier Tastes of Powder. And it's a very short piece. Richies, as you know, if you've seen in the miniseries, he's a very upbeat personality. He does a lot of voices and all that. And you'll be happy to know Richie Tozier, he is a DJ, a popular radio DJ for a Las Vegas radio station. So after the phone call from Mike Hanlon, Richard Tozier finds himself barfing. He just can't handle it. And he's not very... I don't know, he's not very stable with the situation. As you know, in the miniseries, he's kind of like a wisecracking smartass. So, and here he's very frightful. He's very afraid, and he's kind of sick to his stomach about it. I know when they make the phone call, it shows a bit of that. He's throwing up, but he seems more frightful in the book than he does in the miniseries, and he's not a TV personality as they show in the miniseries. He's, like I said, a radio DJ, a popular radio DJ. He's pretty well off. He's saved a lot of money. He started saving cash in a safe in his house. He said he didn't really know why, and now that the situation has come up, he knew exactly why, because as he's packing, he goes into the vault and chucks his saved cash up into his suitcase. So he said he felt like when he was packing, it was as if he was already dead. And as you're packing, you feel that much dread, that you feel like you've already died. And he said he felt like he was just allowed back to make all the final preparations of his life. You know, he called different things and canceled shows, and he had to call his station manager and let them know that he would not be coming in. He was going to be taking a powder, which is a time off. And the station manager wasn't very happy with him. He was pretty pissed off about it, and he didn't know who was going to cover, so it was going to be a lot of hassle for him. He tried to talk him out of it, but Richie said he had made a promise, and he had to go back to fulfill his promise. And the station manager was kind of tripping out. Was like, a promise to who, you know? And he's like, a promise I made 20 years ago. And the station manager was really pissed off about that, you know? So eventually the station manager gets fed up, and Richie Tozier tries to make some of his impressions and voices to ease the tension, and the station manager's not having it. He said, fine, take your time off, and I'll fill in, and ends up hanging up on Richie. The phone rings soon after, and Richie knows it's probably the station manager, but what's done is done, and he just lets it be. He calls the Dairy Townhouse to reserve a room, and as he does, he suddenly has this crazy flashback, and he's kind of like traumatized by it. He has this flashback of him constantly running away from Henry Bowers and Henry Bowers' gang. I think Chris and Belch. I know Belch for sure. He's upset after the phone call, and let's see. He's upset that all of a sudden just the voice, hearing Mike Hanlon's voice, has thrown open these vaults in his mind. Like there's these vaults just being popped open with memory after memory, and what it is like fear after fear. So this is kind of what he's thinking in his mind. They're not records but dead bodies. You buried them deep, but now there's some kind of crazy earthquake going on, and the ground is spitting them up to the surface. You're not Rich Records Tozier down there. Down there you're just Richie Four Eyes Tozier, and you're with your buddies, and you're so scared it feels like your balls are turning into witch's grout jelly. Those aren't doors, and they're not opening. Those are crypts, Richie. They're cracking open, and the vampires you thought were dead are all flying out again. So he's pretty jacked up about this. He's not he's not handling it very well. Just the thought of it kind of, it's just making him sick, and he makes another trip to the bathroom, and he throws up again, and he spends a couple times during this chapter in the restroom. All of a sudden, something that pops into his mind, something he hasn't thought of for a very long time, was Stan. Stanley pops in his mind, and he says, yes, Doc. It all comes back to me now. Remember Stanley Uris, for instance? Bet your fur I do. Remember how we used to say that and think it was so cool? Stanley Urine, that's what the big kids called him. Hey, Urine. Hey, you fucking Christ killer. Where you going? One of your fag friends gonna give you a BJ? So this is just kind of something that popped in his mind. And more stuff starts kind of popping in. He starts remembering each one of his friends he hasn't thought of in over 20 years. What a bunch of losers they had been. Stan Uris with his big Jew-boy nose. Bill Denbraw, who could say nothing but hi-ho silver, without stuttering so bad that it drove you almost dog shit. Beverly Marsh with her bruises and her cigarettes rolled into the sleeve of her blouse. Ben Hanscom, who had been so big he looked like a human version of Moby Dick. And Richie Tozier with his thick glasses and his A averages and his wise mouth and his face with that just begged to be pounded into new and exciting shapes. Was there a word for what they had been? Oh, yes. There always was. Le Juste. In this case, Le Mot Juste was wimps. I don't speak French. How it all came back, and now he stood here in his den, shivering as helplessly as a homeless mutt caught in a thunderstorm. All he remembered, there were other things that he hadn't thought of in years, trembling just below the surface, bloody things. A darkness, some darkness, the house on Neibolt Street, and Bill screaming, "You killed my brother, you fucker." Did he remember? Just not enough not to want to remember anymore? And you could bet your fur on that. A smell of garbage, a smell of shit, and a smell of something else. Something worse than either. It was the stink of the beast. The stink of it. Down there in the darkness under Derry, where the machines thundered on. And then he remembered Georgie. Now, when he remembered Georgie, he ran back to the porcelain toilet. He does this a few times during the book. He's not handling all of this well, and he's sick to his stomach. And he finally gets everything packed up, and it says here, 40 minutes later, feeling husked out and somehow cleansed, he threw his suitcases into the trunk of his MG and backed it out of the garage. The light was fading. He looked at his house with the new plantings. He looked at the beach, at the water, which had taken a cast of pale emeralds broken by a narrow track of beaten gold, and a conviction stole over him that he would never see any of this again, that he was a dead man walking. So, even though he was frightened, he packed his stuff, sat outside his house, pulled out of the driveway, saw everything he was leaving behind, everything he worked for, and felt this just feeling over himself that he was just never going to return, that he was just done, and whatever he was turning to whatever he was going to go back to so that he could fulfill his promise was probably going to take him out. So that's kind of the adult part of Richie Tozier. They don't go into the flashbacks like in the miniseries, and they don't really give too much of his personal life like they did with Stanley Uris, but that's kind of the part 2 of chapter 3, and the next video will be Ben Hanscom. That's the third phone call Mike Hanlon makes. Alright guys, until next time, video will be posted shortly. Bye.